Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be a review and demo of the brand new Juicy Olive Eyeshadow Palette by Give Me Glow Cosmetics. If you're new to my channel, I'm Yori and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Let's go ahead and get right into the video. I purchased my palette in the second launch. Somehow I missed the first launch. I don't know how that happened, but it was on National Olive Day, which I didn't even know we had a National Olive Day, but apparently we do. But I missed out on it. One of the things about this brand is they're very active on social media, but you have to really pay attention to when their launch dates are. Like, they're not, in my opinion, they're not that clearly advertised, but in any case, I was able to get it on second launch. I paid $30 and I bought it directly from their website. When you receive the palette, this is the outer packaging. It just says Juicy Olive, very similar to the inside palette, and there's really no information on the outer carton, which is the same for the actual palette. As you can see, the graphic is repeated, but again on the back side there's no information about ingredients, shelf life, quantity of product, where it was made, or anything like that. So you really have to visit their website to get some information about ingredients and things like that. Before I get into it, let's go ahead and show you the inside of the palette. You do have a mirror, and inside you have 6 shades, which are in the typical Give Me Glow Cosmetics pan size, which is quite large. Now, I went on their website so I can see when they might have another launch date, but there's really no information. Again, the palette is currently listed as being out of stock, but as I understand it, this is going to be a permanent item in their collection. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, if you look at their website, pulled it up right here, don't laugh at the time of day at which I'm filming, but if you look at the URL, it says not secure when you go into their website. Now, I'm not sure if that means their security certificate has expired. Maybe they haven't renewed it. I'm not exactly sure, but the store does accept PayPal, which is how I paid. And so I always recommend, whenever you're purchasing from a new brand, which this was a new brand to me, I do recommend paying through PayPal, as it's always most secure. As I mentioned, I paid $30 for my palette, but that did not meet the cap for free shipping from the company, and so I did pay an additional $8 for shipping my palette. I was tempted to buy more stuff, but I decided to just leave it at that, pay for the shipping, and receive my palette to try it out. Now, as I mentioned, when you get the palette, there's just no information about the shelf life or where it was made, and I was looking on the frequently asked questions for the brand itself, as well as visiting the product page, and when you read the description, you do have information about ingredients. The shades do contain ultramarines, but it doesn't say specifically which ones, and I know that sometimes that's an ingredient that you may look out for if you like to apply shadows to your lips. Again, no information about shelf life, nothing about where it was manufactured, but it does say that it is vegan and cruelty free. Now, in terms of expiration dates, it only talks about their lipstick, which expires in 12 months, but again, nothing about the palettes. Now, granted, I keep eyeshadow palettes long past the suggested shelf life if the performance is still good, so I don't necessarily worry about that, but if you like to be a stickler for those kinds of things, that's something that might bother you. Now, let's go ahead and get into the palette. These are what the shades look like. Clearly, there is a theme here with a name like Juicy Olive. We are definitely looking at those murky olive toned eyeshadows, which I happen to love. So when I saw this palette on Instagram, I knew I had to have it, and when I missed the first stock, I was really frustrated because I know that this is a brand that takes a while to restock their products. They're a small company, so I understand, but I really wanted this one. When I swatched the palette, I did a one swipe swatch. I did not go over it to smooth it out in any way, and that was the same for the mattes and shimmers, and they just look beautiful. They swatch beautifully. Now, even though I can't give you specifics about the quantity of product that you're receiving, the pans look quite large, although they're probably not super deep. As you can see that the palette is really quite thin. It is a cardboard packaging. You do have a mirror and magnetized closure, so that is really nice. I literally just accidentally ran my hand across one of the shades, and look at how much pigment I have on my finger already. Now, I did notice from the swatches that the shade Dry Martini and Vodka Tini over here, there's not that much difference. I would have liked to have seen one or the other of the shades replaced with something else, but it does yield a very nice blend on the eye because you have a perfect gradient from light to dark in terms of the mattes. I do like the ratio of mattes and shimmers as well. The mattes are also a little bit similar. This one here, Shaken Not Stirred, is a little more green, and the shade Garnish is just a little more yellow, but definitely we have a theme going on here, and I'm okay with that theme. When I applied the shadows to the eyes, and you'll see this, the shade Cocktails is the only one that really gave me a little bit of trouble. And the problem I was having with this one is similar to what some people were experiencing with Subculture from Anastasia Beverly Hills, in that you pack on the color and when you go to blend, the color just kind of falls off. I was experiencing that with this shade just a little bit, but I was still able to work with it, and I was able to pack it on my lid, as long as after blending I would pack it back on wherever any of the pigmentation was lost, and so I was able to work with it. But I would say that of all the shades in the palette, that one is the one that performs the least well. They all perform really well, but that one is just a little bit harder to manipulate than the others. In terms of the shimmer, you're going to see that I applied them dry, and they applied super well. I didn't use any additional adhering medium or anything like that. They didn't require any help. They picked up on the brush just fine. So I'm really impressed with the quality of the palette. I'm really happy to have an all green palette, especially these really murky green kind of shades. I love them, and I really enjoy the look that I created. I have a feeling that whoever reviews this palette is going to come up with a really similar look. I mean, you could do like halo eyes, cut crease, smoky eye, and then really what else is there? And since the colors are so monochromatic, I have a feeling the looks you're going to be seeing are going to be very, very similar, maybe a little repetitious, but hopefully I gave you something a little bit different. I'm not sure. I haven't seen that many reviews on this palette. I want to go ahead and get into the demo, and if you don't have this specific palette and you want to follow along with the tutorial with something that you already have, I would recommend something along the lines of the Juvia's Place Tribe palette, the Colored Rain Safari Rain palette. I reviewed both those palettes on my channel. There's the ColourPop monochromatic green palette. What's that one called? Just My Luck. Gemini from Melt Cosmetics. And the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions. Now, it may not necessarily be the same exact tone of green, but you could definitely achieve something similar. Now let's go ahead and get into the demo. The layout of this palette basically makes it impossible for you to not be able to blend out your eyeshadow. You can see the color gradient here really clearly, with the lightest green, then the second lightest, the second darkest, and the darkest. So those are exactly the way I'm going to apply them to my crease and outer V. I'm going to take a NYX number 16 brush and the shade Dry Martini. And I'm gonna go ahead and apply this to my upper crease. I did use Tarte Shape Tape as an eyeshadow base today, and I set that down with Glossier's Wowder. I'm not being too precise with this shade, but I am starting to sort of wing out that smoked out wing look. Next, I'm taking a Sigma E35 brush and the shade Vodkatini, and I'm going to apply that just a little bit lower, and I'm going to continue to create that winged out shape. Esom S33 and the shade Dirty Martini, and I just tap that in the outer V and a little bit into the crease. I'm also going to run a little bit of that shade along the lower lash line. Next, I'm taking a Luxie 209 and the shade Cocktails. This is the only shade in the palette that gave me any trouble. Basically, what was happening, you can see I can lay down the shade just fine, and it's very pigmented. But the minute I start blending, some of the color does fall off. Kind of like what was happening to a lot of people with their Subculture palettes. That's what I have experienced with this shade. So I've packed it on, and then I'm gonna go ahead and blend. And I don't know if you can see, but on the lid here, once I start blending, some of the color does fall off. So basically, to work my way around that, all I was doing was blending and then packing back the color that I lost. I also applied that same shade with an Esom S31, and I applied that along the lower lash line. Now this one is a really soft natural hair brush, and I don't experience the same loss of pigmentation that I did with the synthetic brush. Next, I'm taking an e.l.f. brush, and this is the shade Garnish. I'm gonna take this completely dry. And I'm gonna apply it to my inner corner, as well as just on the inner part of the lower lash line. Lastly, with an Esom W23, I'm taking the shade Shaken Not Stirred, and I'm going to apply that to the remainder of the lid. This is the second metallic shade in the palette, and I am again using it completely dry. I am able to brush away just a little bit of fallout that I got from the cocktail shade. To finish the look, I used black eyeliner on the upper and lower rim. I did use liquid liner. Look at this guy. Hasn't it been a long time since you've seen this? This is the NYC liquid liner. And my lashes for today are these Baroque ones by Allure. For today's lip combo, I have Coco K by Kylie Cosmetics, underneath Ofra Long Lasting Liquid Lipstick, and this is in the shade Bel Air. So I'm gonna finish all those steps and I will be back with my final thoughts. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing that demo as well as this brief review of the Give Me Glow Cosmetics Juicy Olive palette. I'm really pleased with my palette. I love a good monochromatic eyeshadow palette, and this one happens to be one of my absolute favorite eyeshadow tones. Visually, it looks like I'm getting a ton of product, although I can't tell you exactly how much. Even so, I never go through an eyeshadow palette. I barely ever hit pan, and I just feel like I'm gonna enjoy this one for a good long time to come. As I mentioned earlier, I don't have any information about a restock, although I believe that it's gonna be a permanent palette, and so they will be restocking at some point. If you know when they're gonna be restocking, definitely leave that in the comment section down below and help us out in case there's anyone that has missed the palette and is still interested in it. If you picked it up, I would love to know what your experience with it has been and what kind of looks you've created. Are they anywhere similar to mine? Because I just suspect that it's going to be a little bit repetitive, but if you enjoy these shades, the quality is really good and I do recommend it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget, give it a big thumbs up for me, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider doing so, as I would love to have you join me for a future video, which should be really soon. Hope you're doing really well, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of days on my next one. Bye-bye.